Exactamente, que no tiene nada por dentro de su anus.
¿Qué ha pasado? ¿Por qué hay tanta policía? No saben nada. ¿Sigue escondido en la casa, en el sótano?
No se sabe si está metido dentro de la casa todavía, no, ese es el problema que están teniendo ahora. Y están tratando de averiguar si está dentro de la casa o no está dentro de la casa.
¿Sabemos la descripción física al menos de este señor al que buscan?
No, por el momento no lo sé.
¿Nos dejarían pasar?
No, no te van a dejar pasar. Está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando.
50 estados, más de 300 millones de habitantes. En los Estados Unidos de América, miles de policías combaten a diario el narcotráfico y la prostitución. En este país viven 7 millones de drogodependientes. Y 31.000 personas mueren cada año por el consumo de drogas. ¿Esto es cocaína?
Eso es cocaína, sí, pequeñas dosis.
Acompañamos a la policía por los suburbios de Filadelfia, Norcross y San Diego.
Está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando.
Donde los enfrentamientos entre delincuentes y policías se producen a diario.
We got a camera, we got a camera, we got a camera, we got a camera.
En Estados Unidos, la mayoría de ciudadanos pueden poseer un arma. Es el país con mayor número de armas por habitante del mundo. Por sus calles circulan 270.000.
Está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando, está peleando.
Estados Unidos ha llegado a alcanzar 16.000 crímenes al año por arma de fuego.
Ya lo tienen.
Estos hechos hacen que la tasa de violencia en este país sea 4 veces superior a la europea.
Es muy agresivo con mi niño.
¿Ha pensado en separarse de él?
Últimamente sí.
Acompañamos a la patrulla capitaneada por el agente Carlos Díaz. Su mayor problema desde hace años son las consecuencias del uso de la última droga de moda, la PCP. Se trata de un líquido alucinógeno en el que los adictos impregnan la marihuana antes de fumarla. Sus efectos son devastadores. En el caso de este hombre, la droga le hace estar totalmente desorientado.
Muy bien.
Es incapaz de articular palabra y ni siquiera recuerda la fecha de su nacimiento.
What's your name? Quincy, right?
Yes.
What's your date of birth, Quincy? What's your date of birth? What's your name? 1024 what? Quincy, right? Huh?
Yes.
Carlos, este hombre apenas se sujeta en pie. ¿Qué puede haber consumido?
Esto, una droga que se llama PCP. Se fuma. Put your hand behind your back. All right?
¿Qué puede haber consumido? ¿Se lo llevan detenido, Carlos?
Sí. Que lo que tiene son drogas encima.
¿Esto es cocaína?
Eso es cocaína.
¿Cuánto puede haber aquí aproximadamente?
Aproximadamente quizá 20. 20 bolsitas de
Son
piedra.
como pequeñas dosis.
Pequeñas dosis. Pero esto quiere decir que él quizá lo estaba vendiendo.
¿Cuánto puede haber? Es que parece que se encuentra muy mal, ¿verdad?
Va a tener que ir al hospital.
El detenido está prácticamente inconsciente en estos momentos, no le pueden casi ni meter al fuego a policía. El detenido está prácticamente inconsciente. Y viene por aquí la camella. A causa de la droga consumida, el hombre no puede moverse por sí solo. Es un peso muerto para los agentes que se encargan de subirle a la camilla. A causa de la droga consumida, el hombre no puede moverse por sí solo. Es un peso muerto para los agentes que se encargan de subirle a la camilla. Y en esta ambulancia se van a llevar al detenido directamente al hospital para que pueda ser atendido. Seguimos patrullando, ¿no, Carlos?
Vamos para encima.
¿Hacia dónde nos dirigimos, Carlos?
Vamos a una llamada para una persona con un revólver.
¿Qué información tenemos?
Hombre moreno dentro de un vehículo gris que acaba de decirle a otros morenos que lo iba a matar con un revólver. Estaba bajo la influencia del PCP, es un líquido que le echan a la marihuana.
Ponen en contacto la marihuana con formol.
Exacto,
Y después la secan y se la fuman.
exacto.
¿A esto le denominan ustedes?
El PCP. Donde ve las luces.
¿A esto le denominan ustedes? Este joven se mueve sin control, dando puñetazos al aire. Va descalzo. Parece que sufre alucinaciones. Muchas veces esta sustancia provoca que los drogadictos no tengan control sobre su propio cuerpo. Muchas veces esta sustancia provoca que los drogadictos no tengan control sobre su propio cuerpo. A la hora de reducir a los delincuentes, las descargas eléctricas son muy recurridas en Estados Unidos. Los policías disparan al detenido. Le acaban de lanzar 2 agujas que se quedan clavadas en su cuerpo. El ruido que se escucha son esas descargas que le disparan constantemente y que equivalen a la corriente que pueden emitir 200 enchufes a la vez.
Trying to sit here and talking about the cases. I know. Yo, where's your stretcher at?
We know, and we are working hard to open that hatch tonight because we've got goodies waiting in there for us. Foods that we haven't had maybe in a few months and that we're really looking forward to. And we are working hard to open that hatch tonight because we've got goodies waiting in there for us. Foods that we haven't had maybe in a few months and that we're really looking forward to. And we are working hard to open that hatch tonight because we've got goodies waiting in there for us.
Han clavado agujas como esta en el cuerpo del detenido, propinándole descargas de hasta 50.000 voltios.
No se sabe quién es él todavía, él estaba bajo la influencia de algún narcótico que estaba actuando así en la calle y peleando, nosotros tuvimos que cogerlo y llevarlo al hospital.
¿Se han enfrentado a los policías?
Sí, cómo no.
¿Qué han tenido que hacer para inmovilizarle?
Usamos el revólver que tiene 50.000 voltios y no le trabajo. Sí.
¿Hasta ahora?
Ok. Usamos el revólver que tiene 50.000 voltios y no le trabajo. Sí.
¿Hasta ahora?
Ok.
Out of the Soyuz MS-08 being brought to his chair, and Ricky Arnold will follow in short order here. Out of the Soyuz MS-08 being
Right, and Drew again, the commander of Expedition 56, just wrapping up his 3rd flight. Veteran previously of 2 space shuttle missions, so good to see him out of the capsule. So 2 down, 1 more to go. And Ricky just now coming into view for all of our viewers. We can see him getting lowered down in the chair. The 3rd and final crew member out of that Soyuz spacecraft. A big smile already coming from Ricky, again, who just wrapped up his 2nd space flight, having previously flown on shuttle mission STS-119. Ricky, again, also very involved, as Rob was as well, in that year of education on station. As Rob was as well in that year of education on station.
Yeah, you got to give the voice.
Bench press, deadlifts, you name it, but we do that much 6 to 7 days a week. And then we spend another hour every day doing aerobic exercise, whether it's on our treadmill, where we wear a special harness, and that basically provides loading or gravity to pull us down, or we work out on an exercise bike. So we take, it's a good chunk of every day's timeline for all 6 of us up here on board the International Space Station to get all of our exercise in. But we've seen by studies, we've looked at the research, we know that this is imperative. And we know that for even longer missions, heading out towards Mars, it's going to be even more important. Now we're lucky, up here on station is big. It is the size of a 5-bedroom house. So we can have a massive weightlifting machine. We can have a big treadmill. How do we accommodate that on a smaller vehicle? Or, you know, maybe we won't have a bigger habitat until we get to where we're going to. So those are some of the challenges that a lot of our engineers are dealing with right now. Specifically looking at pharmaceuticals, there is nothing standard that we use. We take a daily multivitamin, but we get most of our nutrition from the food. But we don't take any specific pharmaceutical countermeasures, like a bisphosphonate, for example, to counter the bone loss.
Thanks.
But we don't take any specific pharmaceutical countermeasures, like a bisphosphonate, for example, to counter the bone loss.
Hi, Serena. How's it going? My name is Aaron Poliak. I'm a third-year medical student. I just want to quickly say you and I both went to GW as undergrads, and then we came to this medical school, so I feel a type of bond. My name is Aaron. Go Foggy Bottom. So, question, what type of biomedical research are you participating in? I know you already spoke before about it, but maybe a little more. Go Foggy Bottom. So,
yeah, absolutely, and go GW. There are so many biological experiments going on up here right now. Certainly the direct DNA sequencing that I mentioned. We are also doing RNA sequencing, which is not an easy task, but we think we found a way to do it up here on board the ISS, which really revolutionizes how we perform occupational health up here. Other sorts of medical experiments that we're doing. So we've got a special microgravity science glove box that we do a lot of experiments in, where we're able to do cell culture and media exchange. We've also done some reproductive studies where we've looked at bovine sperm motility as well. But when you look at biotech, you know, one of the things I always like to bring up is kind of what we call our regen ecosystem. What does that mean? Well, every day, anything that any astronaut or cosmonaut urinates out, we turn into water. And that is important, because that is something we are going to carry forward from here to live on the moon or live on Mars. You have to be able to have that capability. And so it's every day, the way we generate oxygen, the way we recycle urine and turn it into water, the way we capture any sort of condensate from the air itself. Anytime I breathe out, that condensate, that humidity is captured and reclaimed by the system and utilized. And you kind of think of how wasteful we are on the Earth. Well, up here, we can't be wasteful with one thing. We are always looking at our water balance, always looking at what we need to put in the system, what we need to take back out, and we've gotten pretty good at it.
Thank you very much.
Always looking at our water balance, always looking at what we need to put in the system, what we need to take back out, and we've gotten pretty good at it.
Hello, Dr. Chancellor. My name is Jeff McBride, a fourth-year medical student, and I'm excited to be a part of the Aerospace Medicine Clerkship at NASA next month. My questions for you are, what opportunities do you see for civilian physicians to go in space, and how would you advise medical students like myself to prepare for a career in this? My questions for you are, what opportunities do you see for civilian physicians
Great question. So this field is burgeoning, especially with commercial space, and you've seen how NASA has already made its commercial crew assignments. We have several vehicles coming down the pike, and all of those vehicles, all of those programs are going to be utilizing physicians or aerospace medicine specialists in a way. And so what I tell folks like yourself is to take advantage, certainly, of clerkships, and that's exactly what you're doing, which is great. Conferences, any sort of educational meetings you can get your hands on to learn about aerospace medicine. It's not a widely recognized field. There's only a few institutions in the United States that have this. Luckily, by being in Houston, Texas, you're kind of right in the heartland, certainly with all the research that's going on, Baylor College of Medicine as well. You're just in this lovely area where aerospace medicine means something to people, and you're right next to NASA. So the opportunity to go down there and get experience, or just talk with the people who work in operational space medicine medicine or in research space medicine every day is amazing. So I think, honestly, over the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be certainly the best way to get into space right now, apply for the astronaut corps. That's what I did. Over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to be seeing people taking rides just suborbital flight, so not staying for a long period of time in low Earth orbit. And I definitely see physicians on those flights coming up. So get yourself involved with those groups of people, and I'd be happy to talk with you after and let you know how to do that. But you're already on the right track. You're going to love that clerkship. So get yourself involved with those groups of people, and I'd be happy to talk with you after. And
Thank you, Serena. You were terrific, and we can't wait to have you again when you're back on Earth.
Thank you so much. It was really, really great talking with you today. I wish all of you the best of luck. Medical school is the best time of your life, especially at McGovern. Enjoy every moment of it. Enjoy all the friends you make, because those will be friends for a lifetime. I'll see you guys later. The best time of your life, especially at McGovern. Enjoy every moment of it. Enjoy all the friends you make, because those will be friends for a lifetime. I'll see you guys later.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all participants from McGovern Medical School. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications. Thank you to all participants from McGovern Medical School. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications. Thank you to all participants from McGovern Medical School. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Hey, you're watching NASA TV. on the air and online every day, on this planet and beyond. Hey.
Welcome to Watch This Space. I'm NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, and today we're going to be talking about a new program. In fact, a program that NASA is very proud of. We are on the brink of launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil for the first time since 2011, the retirements of the space shuttles. And so this is an exciting time. We have two providers for this new capability. We call it commercial crew. The idea being that NASA is not purchasing, owning, and operating its own rockets this time. In fact, we're going to buy access to space in a way that we've never done it before. We helped two partners, namely Boeing and SpaceX, develop capability to fly our astronauts into space with the hopes that NASA could become one customer of many customers, driving down our cost of access to space and having multiple providers, and those providers competing on both innovation and cost. Again, giving NASA more opportunity to do more things than we've ever been able to do before. And here we are, about a year away from sending our first astronauts to the International Space Station on our commercial crew partners. So this is an exciting time for NASA. And we are here today with some very special guests. In fact, these are some of our first pilots on the Boeing Starliner, which is a spacecraft that NASA helped develop that ultimately will be taking our American astronauts to the International Space Station. So with us, we have Chris Ferguson, who is not only a NASA astronaut, but he's a shuttle commander by trade, and in fact he flew the last space shuttle that we had fly, the Space Shuttle Atlantis, back in 2011. And of course we also have Sunny Williams, who has done a number of missions to the International Space Station. She's a Navy pilot by trade, as they are both Navy pilots by trade, and in fact they are both from the test community. So we're very excited to have you both here. And I'll start with you, Chris. Tell me, you have been announced as one of the crews for our first flights of the Boeing Starliner commercial crew spacecraft. You were involved in the development of this capability. Tell me, what have you been doing since you've been announced as a crew member?
Well, my life has changed slightly. I've been involved, as you probably know, since 2012 in constructing this. Shortly after I left NASA, Boeing brought me on to help finish the design and take the Starliner all the way to fruition and ultimately into space. So. But in the last couple months, since I knew I was going to be a part of this mission, my trajectory has changed a little bit. I'm a lot more into training and what it's going to take to get Sunny and the rest of the Boeing team up to speed on how the software works, how the crew interface works, how we're going to live and work in space. It's a brand new vehicle. The first time we've done this. It's the first time we've really brought a new human-rated spacecraft to launch from U.S. soil online in almost 35 years. So it's an exciting time for us, and it's great to be back into crew training again. I mean, there is nothing better than training with a group of people who are like-minded and love spacecraft.
So tell me this: each of you have an astronaut uniform on. Yet yours says Boeing. It doesn't say NASA. Tell me about that. Why is that?
So this is going to be a first. As you had mentioned, when this is all complete and NASA purchases services to go back and forth to low Earth orbit, the partner companies that you mentioned, SpaceX and Boeing, will all own the intellectual property that it took to develop this capability with the idea of marketing it elsewhere. So if you had to extrapolate this could perhaps be the beginning of a space line. Boeing builds many airplanes that they supply to airlines. Now we look at a potential business where we build spacecraft to provide a transportation service to low Earth orbit for businesses, for perhaps other countries that are interested in a program of their own, for tourism is always an option, in addition, of course, to the prime NASA customer.
Awesome. And Sonny, tell me about a day in the life of Sonny since you've been selected as a commercial crew partner.
Yeah, it's been a little bit crazy, but fun. I have to say that. Anything you're doing in the space business is fun. Previously, there was 4 of us who were selected for the commercial crew cadre, NASA astronauts, and we divided our time between both companies, SpaceX and Boeing. And now, since the announcement, 2 of us have come over to the Boeing side and the other 2 to the SpaceX side. So we've got to focus our training and attention on this spacecraft. And not only this training, Chris is underestimating the other amount of things that we're doing. We're also doing a lot of testing. Sort of like he was mentioning, this is a new spacecraft, so there's still a lot of things to look at inside the cockpit and how people live in there and how actually we're going to operate it. That's the next step after the development. So a day in the life of might be, to get back to your question, original question, sure, is maybe going to the simulator and trying out some manual piloting techniques, which we might get a chance to try in here, or talking through the procedures and looking at how...
So you're telling me in a few minutes we might be able to jump in this thing and give it a whirl? I look forward to doing that.
Yes.
You're a pilot, so you know what it's like. So some of that, or maybe it's going into the static simulator that we have in Building 9 and looking at how the cockpit is laid out, how the seats are fitted, how the hatch is going to open, where you're going to position some of your stuff, stuff you're going to take, or stuff that you might have to change out, like carbon dioxide removal. So there's a ton of things that we have to do and we get to do. Another thing we get to do sometimes is go down to Kennedy Space Center. You know, the launch pad is there, and so we work with the folks that are working on the launch pad and the crew access arm and the emergency escape system. So it's abundance of a lot of fun things to do. So it's pretty crazy, but a lot of fun.
So you have both been involved in the development of the Starliner, is that correct? At some level. And how is it, I mean, obviously you guys are both experienced with space shuttle flights, and of course Soyuz flights as well. How is this, let's just start with the space shuttle. How is this different than the space shuttle, and why is it designed so differently? Chris, we'll start with you.
So it's a simpler mission. The space shuttle was 14 to 16 days in space. It was like camping, really. And it had all the comforts of home. This is really sort of a point mission, so we'll launch and dock with the space station within about 24 hours. So the sort of the home creature comforts are really not a part of the mission. So we'll dock within 24 hours of launching. We'll stay docked to provide a capability for the crew to come home quickly if they need to. And then after the crew's increment mission is over, we'll bring them back and be on the ground within about 6 hours. So we, like the space shuttle, do land on land. However, we don't do it on wheels. We actually have parachutes and we have airbags to cushion the final landing, and we'll land in one of 5 selected landing sites in the western United States.
Sonny, do you have anything to add about how it's different than your space shuttle flights?
Well, Chris mentioned how it is different from shuttle, but it's actually very similar to Soyuz in its mission and what it's supposed to do. So while it's docked to the space station over that 6 months' time, it's also a lifeboat. So the vehicle needs to be capable to be in space for that long, whereas the shuttle was only a couple weeks. This is going to be 6 months on board the space station. In case there's any problems while the folks are living up there, they can jump into the spacecraft and make their way back to Earth. And that's a really needed capability for sustaining people living on the International Space Station. It's like the Soyuz in its mission. It's a lot different from the Soyuz on the inside of it. The Soyuz, you know, is a heritage vehicle from the 1960s, has a lot of upgrades in the number of years, but it still maintained that shape. This is a brand new spacecraft designed brand new with new technologies and new manufacturing techniques to put this and its rocket together. And so it's a big step in technology. So it's more capable. And it's going to be a little nicer to fly, I think.
So when these spacecraft are certified, the Starliner is fully certified, how many astronauts and or passengers would a Starliner be able to carry to the International Space Station?
So right now we can accommodate 5. NASA's requirement, what they've asked us for, is 4. So we can barter and trade on what you want to do with the 5th seat. There's opportunities out there for, like I said, tourism or perhaps business. If need be, we built it originally to accommodate 7, and with some minor
quite unique, and you can only experience it for yourself. It cannot be told. So right now it will be a little easier for me because I already know what to expect. I know what kind of emotions and feelings and body reactions I would have. But still, training has been conducted in full, regardless of my experience. So, yeah, I was trained really well from scratch. And the past 1.5 years, we've trained together as a crew. So, thank you very much.
During the final launch preparations for a little bit over a week, can you tell us what have you been busy with over that week?
Yes, so it's really a lot of time to reflect and try to make sure that all the last things are together. So packing the things that I'm going to need to put in my bags for when I land 6 months from now. Trying to collect all of the information that I'm going to need on board and making sure it's in place for when I get there. Some of it's a little looking ahead to those EVAs that are going to be occurring shortly after I get on board. So it's trying to focus those final thoughts. One of the things that I've done on a pretty frequent basis is, run with my crewmates out here through the trees and reflect just on what it means to be here in Baikonur.
And you had a chance to see that very Soyuz vehicle you will fly a week ago. What kind of feelings did it bring up?
It felt like it was built for me. I sat down in the seat in my suit and strapped in, and it was a good feeling.
You are in unique position now. Your crewmates for Expedition 58 are with you now in Baikonur, and this crew will be international. How important is the international aspect in human pioneering of space?
Yeah. So I'll correct you just a little bit. One of our crewmates isn't here, Anne McLean. I know she's here in spirit, but I look forward to seeing her come through the hatchway once we're on orbit. And in terms of international cooperation, while we're up there, we're going to have the 20th anniversary of the space station. I think the space station is an example of what nations can do when they come together. We can make the seemingly impossible possible, and we can do that for 2 decades. So hopefully it serves as an example, that anniversary of what we should be doing as we go forward with future programs. Our cooperation, when we work together, we're stronger together.
I totally agree with Nick. The International Space Station is a wonderful example of international cooperation in space on board of the International Lab. There is no politics there. I really think it's great. And I think it's a great example for those politicians on the ground. They could learn something from us of different nationalities.
Funny things Alexei said about start. What feeling, maybe an interesting thing when you go to the orbit?
It's been a great value to be able to sit down and listen to Alexei tell stories of what it's like to launch. I think the funniest thing he said yesterday during our briefing when we were talking about the procedures as we were going through, our instructor said, well, you're going to hear this different noise. And then he looked at me and said, everything you're going to hear is going to be different than you saw on the trainer. So I'm expecting a completely different experience than I've had before, and hopefully I can soak it all in and try to share it.
Thank you very much for the questions, and the crew, thank you for your answers.
Down, get ready.
So when I watch,
we'll be okay.
When I watch a Soyuz capsule return, that last burst, that last rocket fire right before it touches down, I've seen it start fires.
Oh yeah.
And of course, if you're not used to seeing it, it's pretty startling. You think something went wrong, but in fact, it's supposed to happen that way. In this particular case, there's going to be airbags rather than a rocket burst. Is that right? So the idea of starting a fire goes down.
I hope so.
So if we see a fire now, something's gone wrong.
We always, all of our landing sites are dry lake beds, so there's very little to burn.
Okay.
But at the same time, you had mentioned airbags. What we do at about 3,000 feet off the ground is we jettison the heat shield that just protected us from the heat of reentry.
So hold on right there, because she mentioned the plasma. You were able to see the plasma. When you talk about plasma, you're talking about subatomic particles that have come off of that heat shield, is that right? Which is ultimately what protects the astronauts inside. So that they call it an ablative heat shield. In other words, the heat shield is not, it's intended to not come apart, but it's intended to shed,
to burn
off its skin, and then that skin ultimately protects you from heat and friction and ultimately crushing the capsule. Is that right?
Right. It's about 2,500 degrees, give or take a couple hundred degrees. But it is, you mentioned the plasma, it is, we have a vehicle that's traveling about 5 miles per second, and you literally slam into the atmosphere, and when you do that, you take those air molecules that were formerly things like nitrogen gas and oxygen, and you disassociate them, and you turn them into just, it's plasma gas. It's just sort of free atoms.
Yeah.
And they rapidly dissociate, and they create heat. That heat is carried away by the ablative heat shield, and then they reassociate back over the vehicle. It's really an amazing process.
Wow.
But you do have that thermal protection beneath you.
Yeah.
But once you get down below about 100,000 feet of altitude, you won't need it anymore. It's cool enough. And as I mentioned, we'll eventually jettison that heat shield to expose those airbags that will cushion our final landing.
So how do you, when you say jettison, is it burst off by rockets?
There's actually 6 explosive bolts. So Sonny had mentioned there's plenty of explosive devices that occur on the way down.
Okay.
It's going to be a cacophony, and it's going to sound like the 1812 overture, I'm sure, for a period of time there. But there are 6 bolts that hold both the service module, the bottom part that we need on orbit, to the crew module. We'll jettison that before we deorbit, and then finally there's 6 more bolts that will release the base heat shield as we get close to the ground.
Awesome. So the other day I had the opportunity to go out to Huntsville, and I was able to see the components for the Space Launch System, which of course is our deep space rocket. And I was fascinated, and of course both of you are involved in being test for the United States Navy. I was fascinated with how the technology for avionics ultimately compares to that of an aircraft. There's an inertial navigation system that's on board, and it's constantly measuring tiny little movements. And so your aircraft, in this case, your spacecraft or your rocket, always knows where it is: latitude, longitude, altitude, yaw, pitch, roll, trajectory, velocity. All of this data is being collected real time, and then your spacecraft or your rocket is comparing all of that data to where your rocket actually should be. So if there is a difference in where it is and where it should be, it then creates a solution to that difference and maneuvers the rocket nozzles to get the rocket headed the right direction, or the spacecraft headed the right direction. And seeing how it all relates to, these are the same type of things when you think.
con frío. ¿Qué pegadas? Bellitas. Quedaron preciosas. Pero viste que se vino el frío, en vez de... Qué lindo tenés el pelo. Me lo lavé ayer, pues mirá el... ¿Sí? Sí, apenas abren acá se va. Lo otro día todo lo rosa. Así me da un ataque, mira. ¿Eh?
So my wife and I are both graduates of the Air Force Academy. The Air Force is the only way we would have ever met. My wife is from New York. I'm from Kansas. Our paths would have never crossed, so we owe everything to the Air Force and the Air Force Academy for bringing us together. We're both in service. We're both committed to serving our country, but more importantly, I think it's committed to serving something larger than ourselves. It's all about teamwork. Every assignment I've had, I've been part of a team. And that idea of you're going to be reliant on the people around you for success and defining your success not on your accomplishments but on the team accomplishments, that's something that Air Force instilled in me and gave me the opportunity to grow and refine. Human space exploration is the ultimate team sport. We've got a team of 6 people on orbit. We're going to have a team of 5 people on orbit for my expeditions. We've got a team of over 100,000 people on the ground that are supporting us on a daily basis. You don't do these things individually. There's no success that's gained individually in space exploration. It's all about the team. I'm Colonel Nick Hague, and I'm a NASA astronaut.
A couple of minutes ago, Kayla mentioned the end of the year of education on station, which was designed to take advantage of the fact that we had a former classroom teacher on board to help students and their teachers here on Earth in their studies of science, technology, engineering, and math. It was an effort that was built on an example set by another teacher more than 30 years ago.
Reach for it. Presented by Science at NASA. In August 1984, President Ronald Reagan announced NASA's plan to send one of America's finest, a teacher, to space aboard Space Shuttle Challenger. Of 11,000 aspirants for the adventure, 37-year-old high school teacher Krista McAuliffe from Concord, New Hampshire, was chosen. As the first
– 8 seconds to the left.
So at this point, the Soyuz executing its fly around of the station. Drew Foysel, the NASA astronaut, Expedition 56 commander in that orbital module, the very front portion, snapping pictures of the station structure from the Soyuz spacecraft.
All right, and we're doing a roll maneuver, right? That's right. Insert the hand control. Take the hand controller all the way to a hard stop clockwise. And we're going to do a clockwise roll maneuver. Taking the hand controller all the way to a hard stop to the right. Copy and... Drew, do you think you can make a video file? Because this photo camera can be set to video mode.
And for now, we'll slowly see the Soyuz begin to retreat from view. That final departure burn was executed.
Quick reminder.
The spacecraft undocking at 2:57 a.m. Central Time, 3:57 a.m. Eastern, while flying just 255 statute miles over Madagascar. Backed away, the solar array's wings spread like the mythical Pegasus, executing a perfect fly around of the International Space Station, giving astronauts a chance to get a beautiful view of humanity's castle in the sky. Already getting a great view from ground teams there at the landing zone. Again, that off-gassing you're seeing is hydrogen peroxide used to fuel the reaction control thrusters on the Soyuz spacecraft being expelled prior to the actual touchdown. The spacecraft already under parachute, beginning its descent to ground at Kazakhstan. Continuing to get this spectacular view in that spacecraft, 3 crew members, Drew Foysel, Ricky Arnold, and Oleg Artemiev, slowly descending to the ground there in Kazakhstan. under the parachutes, everything going nominally or normally throughout all of the Soyuz descent activities today. It looks like the last of the hydrogen peroxide being vented out that used to power those reaction control thrusters. Again, landing was targeted for 6:45 a.m. Central Time. We'll see if we get an actual time. Oh, and there we see the heat shield being expelled from the vehicle as planned. The heat shield has been deployed. That actually exposes those soft landing engines, which again will fire just a little under a meter off the ground.
Buenos días y bienvenidos a mundodesconocido.es. El vídeo que le vamos a mostrar hoy le va a resultar muy didáctico y sorprendente. En él le vamos a revelar cuestiones que usted quizás no conocía o ni siquiera se le han pasado por la cabeza. ¿Nunca se ha preguntado por qué obstinadamente cuando llama al servicio telefónico o a un servicio telefónico de atención al cliente siempre se indica que su conversación puede ser grabada? Usted llama por teléfono y de repente escucha una vocecilla simpática que le dice que su conversación podrá ser grabada. Pues esa grabación es mucho más importante de lo que quizás usted piensa. Decía Jordan Maxwell que en este mundo nada funciona como nosotros pensamos que debería funcionar. ¿Cuántas veces has llamado a los seguros que tienes contratado? ¿Cuántas veces has llamado a un banco, a tu compañía de teléfonos o cualquier servicio de atención al cliente? Y esa simpática voz femenina te dice antes de comenzar la conversación: para mejorar el servicio, su conversación puede ser grabada. Y es que parece ser que algunas compañías que nos graban extraen con esas grabaciones, y escuche lo que le voy a decir, hasta 147 características, y algunas de ellas tan peculiares como el tamaño de nuestros pulmones con la grabación. Sí. Sé que muchos de nosotros pensamos, bueno, si el hecho de que me graben implica que me van a dar o me van a entregar un mejor servicio o quizás una mejor y más adecuada atención la próxima vez, no me importa que me graben. Sé también que algunos de ustedes, e incluso quizás yo, pueda ser un poquito más afilado y pensar que nos están grabando para evitar, si hay malos entendidos, eludir discusiones acaloradas o incluso utilizarse como prueba legal si llegase el caso de disputa frente a una audiencia. O sea, que nos graban y entonces presentan todo aquello como prueba de que nosotros hemos dicho tal o cual cosa o que nos han advertido de tal o cual cosa. Lo cierto es que la cuestión de las grabaciones es mucho más complejo de lo que parece. Es posible que la causa por la que nos graben sean esas. Puede que su empresa, su compañía, su banco sea un banco maravilloso, sean todos fantásticos, tan buenos como Bambi, y decidan que a usted le graban porque quieren darle ese mejor servicio. Pero quizás la cosa es que no sean así, no sean como Bambi y se parezcan bastante más, pues no sé, a otro tipo de animal menos, digamos que, simpático. Detrás de estas grabaciones hay una ingeniería social con unas intenciones que posiblemente no sean muy favorables hacia tus intereses. Pero vamos a ir por partes. El mensaje de que nos graban, ese mensaje que oímos, fue con el tiempo cambiando, lo fueron mutando. Sí. Y lo hicieron todos a la vez, como que se ponen de acuerdo. Parece que se reúnen y dicen todos, oye, vamos a cambiar este mensaje que nos está dando muchos problemas. Al principio el mensaje decía lo siguiente. Una voz femenina salía y decía: por su seguridad, esta conversación será grabada. Claro, muchos de nosotros nos preguntábamos, ¿qué demonios tiene que ver mi seguridad con que me graben telefónicamente? Era como una justificación peregrina por la que la otra parte pretendía grabarnos y para ceñirse a un marco legal nos avisaba amablemente de que lo hacía para que nos sintiéramos más seguros, más seguros. Nos recuerda muy de cerca las decisiones que toman en las altas instancias cuando nos suben los impuestos, cuando nos meten más multas, cuando nos recortan las libertades. Siempre te dicen lo mismo. Te dicen, mire usted, lo hacemos por su seguridad. Es como cuando nuestros padres nos decían, mira hijo, lo hacemos por tu bien. Quizás nuestros padres lo hacían por nuestro bien, pero estos señores pues nos han demostrado una y otra vez que no es por nuestra seguridad, sino sencillamente para saquearnos. Pues quizás ocurra lo mismo. Digamos que nosotros, como somos mayores y adultos, no necesitamos un gran hermano que vele constantemente por nosotros, a cambio de una mordida económica a esas libertades que deberíamos tener. Y eso el Estado se le olvida y sigue legislando contra nosotros. Pero claro, vamos a centrarnos en el famoso mensaje y pasaron los años y se dieron cuenta de que esa frasecita de por su seguridad resultaba demasiado utilizada y estaba muy sobada ya. La gente no era capaz de tragarse esa píldora. Decidieron finalmente cambiar esa frase por la siguiente. Para mejorar el servicio, su conversación será grabada. Ya quitaron lo de por su seguridad y decían directamente que para mejorar el servicio. Claro, con esta nueva frase la gente hacía una mejor digestión. Es una píldora que tú digerías bastante mejor, no te creaba ardor de estómago. Y digamos que te imaginabas a una legión de personas trabajando en cada llamada para mejorar la atención al cliente. Pero el hecho de que siempre nos grabasen implicaba que si tú tenías razón en un litigio contra aquellos que te grababan, siempre podías utilizar sus propias armas, sus grabaciones contra ellos. Tú podías legalmente solicitar esa grabación que te habían efectuado para utilizarla contra ellos. Oiga, mire usted, señoría, su señoría, que me han dicho esto y esto no es así. Y tenemos la prueba que ellos mismos nos grabaron. Claro, esto supongo que les supuso muchos problemas y finalmente decidieron cambiar su conversación será grabada a su conversación podrá ser grabada. Ya no es grabada, ya no será grabada, sino que quizás la graben o quizás no. De ese modo crean una especie de marco de incertidumbre en la que quizás se grabe o quizás no. Y de ese modo, esa llamada que quizás se ha grabado o quizás no, tal vez ellos la atiendan legalmente si funciona a sus intereses y si no funciona a sus intereses, lo mejor será o lo que dirán será que no fue grabada. Finalmente la frase quedó así y esa es la que podéis escuchar constantemente. Para poder mejorar el servicio, su conversación puede ser grabada. Año 2018. Ahora todo se había vuelto más fácil. Pero claro, descubrieron que 3 de los 4 bancos más grandes de Estados Unidos analizaban minuciosamente las llamadas para una sorprendente tecnología denominada phone printing, que así se llama la tecnología. Esta tecnología era capaz de evaluar y es capaz de evaluar hasta 147 características de las llamadas. Imagínese usted, desde el modelo telefónico, desde la ubicación en la que te encuentras, cuestiones personales, como he dicho antes, del tamaño de nuestros pulmones. El sistema fue desarrollado por una empresa llamada Nice System. Aparentemente, los bancos, allí en Estados Unidos, alegaron de que dicho sistema se utilizaba para reconocer la voz de la persona y evitar fraudes en las tarjetas de crédito. Si algún impostor pretendía hacerse pasar por nosotros, este sistema identificaba que no eran nosotros o que no éramos nosotros. Y es cierto, el fraude de las tarjetas de crédito en estos momentos es brutal, pero no siempre las cosas van a ser favorables a nuestros intereses. Imagínese usted, le voy a poner un paisaje en el cual yo pido un crédito a una entidad financiera y en una de las llamadas previas a la concesión de dicho crédito, el sistema indica que tengo una capacidad pulmonar disminuida, mi teléfono es de baja gama, mi voz está estresada y detectan algún tipo de patrón con el cual pueden ver si estoy mintiendo y también detectan que mi ubicación o la ubicación desde donde estoy llamando es una ciudad más bien poco recomendable. Quizás después de saber todas estas cosas de mí, tal vez no me den el crédito. ¿Puede ocurrir eso? ¿Puede ocurrir que cojan esos 147 datos y los usen contra nosotros? Mire, le voy a contar algo. Recuerdo uno de mis primeros vídeos, de hecho el primer vídeo. Corría el año 2007 y decía, entre otras cuestiones, que los teléfonos móviles, pese a que nosotros los apaguemos, siguen emitiendo una señal de radiobaliza que indica nuestra posición aproximada con un pequeño error. Los teléfonos móviles son unos chivatos. Comentaba en aquel vídeo que la única forma de solucionar esta señal, o de evitar esta señal que chivaba nuestra posición, era quitarle la batería al teléfono. También comentaba que con el tiempo los móviles del futuro no se les podría extraer la batería para que con ese modo siempre cantasen nuestra ubicación o el punto en el que nos encontrábamos. Y efectivamente tuve razón, como tantos y tantos y tantos vídeos. Y si no, usted rebobine y verá que en aquellos vídeos donde hablaba de estas cuestiones siempre se ha producido lo que allí decíamos. Tal vez nos graban por nuestra seguridad, tal vez nos graban para mejorar el servicio, o tal vez nos graban para asegurarse que aquello que usted está contratando será solvente, o usted es directamente aquella persona que dice ser. ¿Por qué nos graban constantemente? Y sin embargo, si usted les intenta grabar a ellos, quizás las cosas no sean tan fáciles. Lo dejamos en este punto y recuerde que vivimos en un mundo en el cual los mecanismos de control son constantes y no podemos eludirnos, no podemos, digamos que, distanciarnos de ellos. Estamos en manos del Gran Hermano y el Gran Hermano cada vez quiere más y más datos de nosotros. Quizás el crimen organizado se ha hecho con el control del planeta y de los países. Y si no, usted mire su staff presidencial del país en el que se encuentre. Quizás encuentre el porqué a muchas de estas respuestas. Lo dejamos en este punto y, como siempre decimos, sin más, desde mundodesconocido.es, nos vemos en el próximo videoprograma. Hasta pronto.
Ay, mi cosa divina de mamá. Sí, mamá. Vamos a comer, ¿no? Mamá te da de comer. Bueno, bueno.
minutes ago, Kayla mentioned the end of the year of education on station, which was designed to take advantage of the fact that we had a former classroom teacher on board to help students and their teachers here on Earth in their studies of science, technology, engineering, and math. It was an effort that was built on an example set by another teacher more than 30 years ago.
Reach for it. Presented by Science at NASA. In August 1984, President Ronald Reagan announced NASA's plan to send one of America's finest, a teacher, to space aboard Space Shuttle Challenger. Of 11,000 aspirants for the adventure, 37-year-old high school teacher Krista McAuliffe from Concord, New Hampshire, was chosen. As the first teacher traveling to space, she planned to conduct science demonstrations from low Earth orbit to get students, quote, excited about history, about the future, and about space, end quote. Tragically, Challenger broke apart soon after liftoff on January 28, 1986. There were no survivors, and McAuliffe's planned demonstrations were shelved. International Space Station astronauts Joe Acaba and Ricky Arnold have brought McAuliffe's mission full circle by completing and filming on orbit her envisioned lessons as a tribute to her legacy. U.S. crew members aboard the station have also performed and captured other brief, engaging lessons, or STEmonstrations. As part of the Year of Education on Station, NASA has made all of the demos available to classrooms around the world. Chromatography is one of the most interesting McAuliffe lessons Acaba and Arnold have brought to life. It provides hands-on activities for students to understand the importance of capillary action and chromatography, and compare how they work in microgravity versus on Earth. Capillary action occurs anytime a liquid spontaneously flows into a narrow tube or porous material. It's how plants get water from their roots to their leaves. It's how our blood makes a round trip through our bodies. And it's how those paper towels soaked up the orange juice you spilled this morning. Chromatography is a technique that uses capillary action to separate mixtures so they can be analyzed. On Earth, chromatography is used for activities such as studying samples at a crime scene. Chromatography is an essential technique for spaceflight, too. For instance, keeping crew persons safe from contaminants includes analyzing unknowns, which can be critical on long space missions. An example of a Year of Education STEmonstration features NASA astronaut Randy Bresnik slingshotting objects of all sizes across the inside of the space station with a bungee cord. He's illustrating how Newton's second law of motion holds true in microgravity, just like on Earth. Simply put, Newton's law states that the greater the mass of an object, the more force it will take to accelerate it. Year of Education on Station also included more than 60 opportunities for hundreds of students and teachers to connect via in-flight education downlinks with astronauts aboard the space station for live question and answer sessions. Participants ask questions about all aspects of living and working in space.
Hi, my name is Ramsey, and my question is, have you ever had the idea to get a lot of water, pour it out, and see what happens?
See how it just sticks to my hand? It just waves there. It doesn't really go anywhere. It just sticks right to the surface, so I could drink my lemonade right from my hand.
How do you grow plants in microgravity without soil and water getting everywhere?
One of the plants actually uses pillows that are impregnated with moisture and the nutrients they need. We have another advanced plant habitat that I've been working on where there's a reservoir in the water. It's all very controlled, pretty much soil-free. The important thing is nutrients and water.
Hi, I'm Lexi. Would a yo-yo work in microgravity?
I didn't have a lot of time to practice, so here we go. My first yo-yo. So it works, but it's a little bit different. So thanks for the question and let me find out if they do work.
With the Year of Education on Station, NASA's goal was to do what Krista and her optimism did so well: inspire students and teachers to, quote, reach for it, push yourself as far as you can, end quote. For more on NASA's Year of Education on Station, Go to www.nasa.gov/STEMOnStation. For other inspiring NASA happenings, visit science.nasa.gov.
As you just saw, a part of the Year of Education on Station was the work of the station crew on a series of video features called STEMonstrations. Several NASA astronauts took advantage of microgravity to help students learn about a variety of scientific principles, like the short clip we saw of Randy Bresnik demonstrating Newton's second law of motion. Want to see the rest of it? Me too.
Hello everyone, I'm astronaut Randy Bresnik, living and working aboard the International Space Station. Now, on the space station, we live in a microgravity environment. Do you think the laws of physics will hold up? Come on, let's go find out.
The acceleration of an object depends on the net force acting on the object and the mass of the object, or F equals ma.
Jolly good show, Sir Isaac.
Here we see that once the force of the thrust is greater than the weight of the vehicle, the rocket begins to accelerate.
All right, we're going to start with something small. Something you might have at home. A little stick of chapstick. We'll go ahead and use our force being our bungee cord here. We'll put it on our bungee, and we'll pull it back. Let it go. And you can see how fast it accelerates because there's very little mass. Next, we'll try a little spaceship. A little more massive, and you can feel that because as you move it, you can feel that the kind of the force, the extra force you have to push with your hand. So we'll put our spaceship on our launcher here, same spot. Notice it's flying a lot slower than that chapstick did. What we've seen is the same amount of force on a smaller, less massive object means the acceleration is faster. Well, this is the biggest and most massive thing we have, so let's see how the acceleration is affected. Pull back the same amount on the force, and here we go. And there you have it, Newton's second law of motion in action. Thanks everybody for exploring a little physics with me today. Now I'm going to send it back to Earth so you can start your experiments. See you again real soon.
An activity like STEMonstrations, or the Year of Education on Station, are pretty high-profile ways that astronauts use their time in space to connect with people on Earth and share the experience. But resourceful astronauts have found other ways to connect their time in space to life on the planet. Recently, one station crew member who was watching a natural disaster on Earth unfold right below him found a way to help.
The first pictures now coming in from Puerto Rico after taking a direct hit. Hurricane Maria slamming into the island. One official saying the island is destroyed.
Hours with winds and rain, and didn't stop.
Power lines are down. Streets are impassable. Many roads are flooded.
High winds uprooting trees, overturning cars, and turning buildings into piles of twisted metal.
It is something that will change Puerto Rico forever.
We had no water, no food, no gasoline, no communication at all.
Not knowing where my next meal will come from, it hasn't been easy.
After Hurricane Maria, everything was gray, all the plants were dead. Hurricane Maria took the color away from us.
I am sure that these children will not be the same. They will not be the same. They are still struggling and trying to recover from this.
My name is Joe Acaba. I'm a NASA astronaut of Puerto Rican descent. I was about a week into my mission on the International Space Station. Hurricane Maria was forming up, and from there, if you looked out the window, Maria took up a big chunk of what we could see. It was going to cover the entire island. After the hurricane, their power grid was pretty much taken out. You just couldn't see the island anymore. The hurricane, I think, had a huge impact on, the island as a whole, but especially the kids.
Joe Acaba was our hero, and we need something positive. The students need something positive.
We wanted to pull through, forget all that happened, and lift up our spirits and lift off the island.
So I knew I couldn't do much from up on the International Space Station, but I did want to connect with the students to show them that there is hope and that there are people out there that care about them.
NASA has the STEM station, which allows the students and teachers to talk to the astronaut in the space station.
It's making that connection so that maybe, they become more interested and we can inspire them more to study the STEM fields.
So we were able to establish and coordinate with NASA one of these video conferences. Thousands of students from different parts of the island watching the video conference with the space station, talking to Joe.
This is Joe aboard the International Space Station. I have you loud and clear.
How do you compare?
What is the most impressive view?
How did Puerto Rico look after
astronauts allowed to visit? How often?
What is the minimum number of?
It was awesome because, as soon as it came up, you could hear people clapping, people were excited. So even though I couldn't see them, I could feel them, and that was pretty neat.
It was amazing. He called from the International Space Station to see how Puerto Rico was doing, and that means a lot for us, a lot.
In May of 2018, I was able to go back to the island, my first time since the hurricane. It was a great opportunity to get out and kind of come full circle with those students, to go and see them in person and, kind of reiterate how important they are and just to give them a little bit more hope because there's still a long way to go on the island.
He's a hero for us. Kids love him and everybody loves him here. Joe Acaba is the role model that we need at this time.
I want to be like him. I want to go far, and I want to be an example for little kids when I'm older.
Not only is the International Space Station a great tool for scientific research and exploration, but for students from Puerto Rico in particular, I think that having that video conference with them, it did provide some hope. It did provide some inspiration. And so it's just one of the benefits that we get from the International Space Station.
We're now in the midst of a crew exchange on the International Space Station. 3 crew members just departed in their Soyuz vehicle, and 2 more crew members are going to fly their Soyuz vehicle to the station next week. But the day is coming when people will make the trip to and from the space station in other vehicles. NASA's Commercial Crew Program is working with 2 companies that are moving right along in getting their rockets and space vehicles ready to join the fleet.
I am not a geeky person and I don't really love software all the time, but actually seeing automated software, not only on the spacecraft, but on the rocket come together, it's really cool.
Boeing is flying a ULA Atlas V rocket, and they will have their CST-100, or the Starliner as they call it, sitting on top of that. For the SpaceX side, we've got the Falcon 9 rocket, which is now the Block 5, and some of you may be hearing about that, as well as a modified Dragon capsule on top.
When you step into even just a demonstration of what their capsule looks like, it's like, whoa, this is huge. It has this beautiful feel and touch to it. It's very sleek.
We really designed, for the first time in 30 years, how does a human interface with a spacecraft? And a lot has happened in 30 years. I mean, we see cars that autonomously drive around the road. How do I create that interface to allow the human to be involved, but at the same time a passenger and not too involved? How do we make it easier for someone to become an astronaut.
Folks all over the world are going to be watching this because we're integrating new technology. It's going to make these spacecraft better and smarter and paving the way for the future.
A tool that has helped guide sailors across oceans for centuries is being tested on board the International Space Station in an experiment looking at the use of a handheld sextant as a potential emergency navigation tool for guiding spacecraft across the cosmos.
lines up a known star and a prominent landmark, and feeding his readings into the computer, gets his position back from the machine.
John's pointing right now at the sextant and a telescope, which are our navigation means to get home.
No one knows the International Space Station better than the people who live and work there. They often take time to show off their home on orbit. During Expedition 52, the crew produced a series of bite-sized explanations of station components that they called Speedy Time, for reasons you'll see in a moment. Here, flight engineer Jack Fisher gives us a quick but thorough tour of payload activities inside and outside the airlock in the station's Japanese laboratory module, Kibo.
Buddy, I'm going to do my best over the next few months to show you in bite-sized chunks this wonderful place I get to call home. I'm going to have to talk fast, so we're going to call it Speedy Time. All right, the first one is the gem airlock. This is so cool. It has a slide table. We open it up, the slide table comes out, we can put all sorts of things on it, put it back in, depressurize it, because it's an airlock, and then slide it outside. We have a robotic arm. We can control it with this wonderful panel here, or they can control it from the ground. How cool. And then, once it's outside, we put all sorts of experiments out there. Let's take a look, because it's gorgeous. This is the gem window. Woo! And there are some of the experiments, including the robotic arm, which then controls all of those experiments once they're outside and puts them in the right position. Or, in the case of small satellites, it actually launches them. How cool is that? That is your first Speedy Time video. Have a great day. See you next time.
If you'd like to get another look at any of these stories we featured today, check us out on YouTube and on Facebook. There are the addresses in the blue box. While you're at those spots, check out all the other cool stuff you can find about NASA and America's human spaceflight program. You should also check out Houston, We Have a Podcast, which features folks here at NASA talking about their work in all aspects of space exploration. We post new episodes every Friday, and today, October 5th, Gary Jordan talks with Nick Hague, the next American astronaut bound for the International Space Station. He's going to launch from Kazakhstan on Thursday, October 11th. Go to www.nasa.gov/Johnson/HWHAP, Houston We Have a Podcast. You can go there anytime to find all of the episodes. You can also listen to them all on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and SoundCloud. This is Mission Control, Houston.
Hey, you're watching NASA TV, on the air and online every day, on this planet and beyond.
Five, four, three, two, one.
What is up, everybody? You are watching NASA in Silicon Valley live for Thursday, September 27th, 2018. I am one of your hosts, Matthew Buffington, and today we have a special guest host. He is a YouTuber, a Twitch streamer, a professional Scotsman, and all-around cool guy, Mr. Scott Manley.
Hello!
How's it going, Scott?
It's going great. Glad to be here.
Are you hyped to do the...
I am as hyped as you can get to be playing with rockets, yes.
Yes. So for folks, if you don't remember, folks who were watching the show, about, I think it was in January, we did a NASA Silicon Valley live show. We did our first space video game show. And so as we were sitting there playing the game, Scott was actually in the chat. And so as we're sitting there going back and forth on Lunar Lander, it was another one. What was the other game that you brought? It was not Lunar Lander.
Space War.
Space War. He was saying like, hey, you got to lead your shots. You got to jump on in. So
that was you?
That was...
Everyone's a critic.
So it was like, so as we were going through, we went back and forth on Twitter a little bit, and I was like, well, hey, let's bring Scott on over to come and help host the show. So welcome.
Thank you.
So our returning Jeopardy champions, we have Mr. Chad Frost and Mary Beth Wilhelm. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Hanging in.
So what anything new happening since the last time you were here playing video games with everybody? What's up? I know, Mary Beth, you just did a presentation, right?
Yeah, we're working on developing some new life detection technologies, and I did some field work in Iceland and lots of lab work, so it's been a busy summer. I'm ready for a vacation.
I think you just came from the presentation, then Chad, you were one of the
Chad
judges.
was our evaluator. So.
How'd you do?
Oh, they're awesome. I mean, they're actually doing their big presentation in about a month, so this was our opportunity to give them a little feedback, and fantastic ideas coming out from all directions. It was super cool.
Awesome. Well, so for this episode, folks, if you can't tell, this is a special Let's Play Video Games episode. But let me jump into the rigmarole, because if you didn't know, this is NASA in Silicon Valley Live, a conversational show out of NASA's Ames Research Center, where we talk to researchers, scientists, engineers, and all-around cool people about all the nerdy NASA news you need to know about. So if you like that, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch. If you want to participate live in the chat, just like that lower third says, you need to go to twitch.tv/NASA. And our friend Kayvon back behind the scenes is actually digging through those questions, so I don't have to see the constant deluge of stuff in the chat. But if you can't catch us live, that is no big deal. We will have video on demand on Twitch and YouTube immediately once the show is over, and the next week it'll be up and replaying or rebroadcasting over on NASA TV, and also we'll have it on an audio version for podcast services throughout the solar system and beyond. So, all right, so before we start moving along, folks who are in the chat, start sending in those questions now. There's different parts throughout the show. We're just going to keep jumping in and grabbing questions from everybody. But, since we are doing video games, I have to make our legal friends a little bit happy. So we're going to jump into a fun disclaimer. We have a fun disclaimer over underlay, or I guess lower third. So this is just to remind everybody as we're playing these games that NASA does not promote. There we go. There it is. NASA does not promote or endorse, or will it provide the appearance of that NASA promotes or endorses a commercial product, service, or activity. Individuals that playing specific games does not constitute an endorsement of such games by NASA or the U.S. federal government. So, yeah, then like with that, we're going to go jump on into some of our first games. But you know what? We did this cool segment transition, so we might as well just play that on over that we're doing for every episode. So. Of course, it's time for a Let's Play. Now, this can include controllers, 12-sided dice, or a Pop-O-Matic bubble. But for this episode, we are playing video games. So, Scott, what do you have for us first?
Well, I came up with a huge list of NASA-related games.
I thought.
And obviously, we're going to play a few of these. But the first one that I wanted was Elite Dangerous.
Nice.
Which is basically a space sim set 1,000 years in the future. And not only can you fly a spaceship, but the game includes renderings of the entire galaxy. So you can go anywhere in the galaxy, including a few places that NASA has actually sent spacecraft.
Nice.
So yeah, this is a elite. I think we can't play it live because we need an internet connection, but we do have a highlight reel of some of my favorite things.
So what are we looking at and what are we seeing here?
We are flying towards Charon and Pluto, which are the two most distant explored bodies in the solar system.
And how fast are we going?
It looks like 1.5 times the speed of light.
Very nice.
You know, whatever.
It's 1,000 years in the future. We'll take some liberties.
Yeah, we're having to slow down a bit so that we don't fly past them too fast.
And so let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, because obviously, being here over at Ames, we're familiar with the New Horizons spacecraft as it went through. I mean, it did the whole flyby of Pluto, got some really cool photos. And now it's heading up to another body. I'm trying to remember.
MU-49, I believe. Also called Ultima Thule.
Okay.
And that'll be the last day of the year when it's doing that, pretty much. So you can see we're coming down. There's Charon and Pluto next to each other. So the developers of this game tried to incorporate as much reality as possible. So they took textures from the real Pluto and Charon and mapped them onto this. You can't land on Pluto, but we will be able to get closer to Charon. I'm just looking around in the cockpit here.
Yeah.
And so, of course, like, you can't talk about Pluto without the first thing in chat being like, is Pluto a planet? That's
It's a dwarf planet.
It's still a planet. It's just a dwarf planet.
So it's still a planet.
It's still a planet.
It's the only binary planet. It's a pretty cool planet, if you ask me.
Yeah, and Charon's a really cool moon. Like, one of the big discoveries from New Horizons was that on the North Pole, there's a deposit of these compounds called tholins. It's like this kind of reddish material, and what that is a mixture of organics. And Pluto doesn't. I don't think Pluto has those deposits, but Charon does, which is pretty neat.
Now, is this Pluto or is this Charon?
This is Charon because.
Is that those things?
Oh yeah, see, there's the reddish material.
Yeah, and I wanted to fly through some of these canyons that we saw. Chasmata. There's 7 of them that have been named on Charon. They're all named after fictional spacecraft. I can't remember which one's which now, but I think only 3 have been approved by the IAU because they're from mythology. But we've got things like TARDIS, Chasmata, and Nostromo.
No way.
Serenity. I don't know which one this is I'm flying through, but I am, trying to do my best Beggar's Canyon impersonation here.
Nice.
I'm really digging the cockpit here. This is...
It's so much better in VR when you can look around and see everything. This is one of the best things to have in VR. This.
And I was going to say, so for Chad as our director of engineering or acting director of engineering here at Ames, it's like, what would you give for a cockpit like this?
Oh, a lot. Yeah. This is. It's easy to forget that it's supposedly 1,000 years in the future, right? Because a lot of the concepts and ideas that we've been working on sort of play into that same general look and feel, and yet. If you do it right, maybe that's what they'll use 1,000 years hence. But I love it's got a little map of the solar system down there, tells you where you are and how to navigate. There's some terrain shows up in there. This is the first time I've ever seen this particular game. It's it's kind of interesting to find your way around in there visually and see what's going on.
In the game, there's something that you might remember from the past year. We're actually coming up to an ancient space probe.
The ancient space probe.
Yes. And I don't know if you can hear the audio.
I think Eric's going to pump up the audio for the audience so that they can hear that. But as we start getting closer. Oh yeah, listen to that.
As you may...
Because right now, where is Voyager right now? Because this isn't where Voyager is right now. This is where Voyager will be in 1,000 years in the future, right?
Yeah, this is like... I don't know how far out it is, like 80... It's right, it's left the solar system, technically. It's crossed the heliopause into interstellar space.
It's the only man-made object ever to do so.
Yeah. But I brought along an interesting prop. I don't know if we can.
I know we can do the picture-in-pictures, so we can get some of our prop stuff over here.
A repressing of the Voyager Golden Record. This was done last year, and in the inside they have all the music, and they have the sounds, the greetings from the various parts of the world. And my favorite part, being a DJ, is a slip mat showing the trajectory that Voyager took on the way, and the two Voyagers took. So yes,
that's really good.
And of course, they had to do like gravity assists, whipping past different planets.
It did, 3 gravity assists. Well, Voyager 2 did.
But we should talk about like what it was. It was a record that was put together to represent all of the sounds of the Earth. And the very first part of the record is recordings of, I think, like over 50 languages, greetings, and then it goes into like the best music from all over the globe was compiled and put onto this record and affixed onto the front of the spacecraft. And in about tens to hundreds of thousands of years, the Voyagers will pass by nearby stars. So the idea is someday maybe somebody will find it and be able to listen to the sounds of Earth.
Well, as the engineer, I always was thrilled that right on the surface of the record, it tells whoever might find the record basically what a record is and how to get the information back off of it, right? So it says, look, there's sound waves on here, and this is what they look like, and here's what you need to do to play the thing back. Plus other basic information content, but starting with, hey, here's what this artifact is and what you might do with it to get at the information contained.
Get some nice.
And so before we jump over to the next one, somebody named Silent Searchlight said at NASA, have either of the Voyager probes traveled beyond the outermost radius of the Oort cloud yet? Oort?
No, the Oort cloud goes way further out. It goes out to 100,000 AU or beyond.
So there you go, Silent Searchlight.
I know Silent Searchlight, yes.
So they're on their way, but it'll take, a long time for them to get out that far.
And so, so what are we looking at coming up over here?
We're just continuing on our journey. We flew past the sun, past Parker Solar Probe, but we're going to go to the moon. And I know NASA's talking about a space station around the moon. Well, we have a space station around the moon 1,000 years in the future in this fictional universe. It's a little bit bigger than what NASA has in mind.
Okay.
This is called Galileo, but I just wanted to show the docking sequence in this game because it's
pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Obviously takes some inspiration from 2001 here. This is the Galileo spacecraft. Space station. And you need to request docking permission from the Space Traffic Control. It's a future where they don't have magical artificial gravity, so for most people to get gravity, they have to rotate the station, which means you have to match the rotation.
It's very realistic.
It's realistic in that way, but
of course, there's already like billboards and
space
commercials.
Advertising. NASA does not endorse any of those.
No, NASA does not endorse or appear to promote or endorse any of the space advertising. Did I see something that said Titan City?
Yeah, there's a Titan City. You can go there if you like.
What is Titan City?
It's another space station in orbit around Titan.
Oh, Titan's cool.
There's probably cities on the surface of Titan, but you can't land there right now because the game only lets you land on planets with no atmosphere. Which is a shame because Titan is a fantastic place to visit with lots of atmosphere.
I think it's the only other place in the solar system where it actually rains.
Really?
Yeah, it rains liquid ethane and methane, though.
Yeah, at least with a solid surface. I think there's possibility of rains in some of the gas giants, but yeah.
My experience with Titan has been playing in Destiny 2. They have Titan and they have these like oceans. It's basically went from a frozen planet to ocean worlds. And the only time I'm sitting there, they'll have like somebody who you talk to and they have their helmet off and they're just like chatting with you. And I'm like,
now wait a minute.
It would be pretty cold.
Wouldn't it be pretty cold?
Just,
and even if it's
70
like
Kelvin, it's fine.
It's like, even if it's like, okay, so the methane isn't frozen, but it's liquid oceans of methane, it's still going to be pretty cold outside.
Pretty cool. So anyway, yeah, I guess next point after stopping to get some coffee, time to head out into the outer solar system. Taking a look around as well. Yeah, people love their greenhouses. There's other spaceships, obviously. I'm going to point out that while this game does let you shoot other people, and it's a big part of the game, during this sequence I decided to be totally a pacifist. Don't even have guns in my spaceship.
No, nice.
And there are aliens who, well,
looking through the chat, a lot of shout outs to Scott.
Hello!
So, hello everybody. And then there was another person who was, I think, Captain II is asking what timeline is this? He said, what, about 1,000 years in the future?
About 1,000 years in the future. And has real time that advances in March with our own time. So it's, September 27th in whatever year it is.
And so, I don't know, like, Chad, as somebody who, as an engineer, talk a little bit about, what are some of those complications to actually build these things? I mean, we're way far off, but it's there's a lot of stuff we have to figure out before anything even comes close.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And some of it we're starting to work on and figure out. One of the big questions is, if you want to build something really big in space, just how do you do that? Well, the biggest thing we've ever built in space is the International Space Station. By and large, we built that by sending all the pieces up as modules and assembling them on orbit with a lot of human labor. Right? It's mostly astronauts putting things together in space. And you could do it that way, but if you're talking a space station the size of this,
it's going to be
there's a huge human labor problem, or alien labor, as the case may be. And so we've really been putting a lot of effort into